do we not have, oh, we have, right here, we have a flag. Okay, let's begin by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Standing, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Welcome for coming. And a few housekeeping things, please. Shut off or silence your cell phones in some ways. We appreciate that. Anybody who, from the public who wishes to address the commission, please fill out one of these blue sheets. You can see Janet back there on the table. She's raising her hand back there. You can please complete it with your name and organization. The topic that you want to discuss is also very important. We will call for a couple calls to the public, but this way, if it was on a specific topic, we would know to give you some time during that discussion. And depending on the amount of speakers that we have, we may have to notify you that we'll be limited on time, but we'll try to be as courteous to what you want to say as possible. All right. Director Talbot, I believe you're up.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Commission, ladies and gentlemen, guests and employees. I will provide the Director's update on activities in the agency and my activities since the last time we met, which was just about one short month ago. Since that time, Commissioners, we have worked very closely with the Governor's Office on a number of issues, ranging from bighorn sheep, domestic sheep, commingling in the bighorn sheep working group to obviously the delisting of grizzly bears. In addition to that, we were asked by the Governor's Office to participate in temporary workforce services stations in Casper, Douglas, and Gillette to help provide temporary opportunities from the department. And as please recall that we do utilize a large number of temporary employees during the summer months for things such as our aquatic invasive species program, et cetera. But that effort was on behalf of the governor to help those folks and who had lost their jobs due to energy downturns, whether they be directly with folks that worked in the oil and gas or secondary or third order effects. And I would like to thank several of our employees, and I won't mention them for fear of missing someone, but we manned those stations for several days to help those folks who are less fortunate and needed opportunities for employment. So that was quite an effort, and those folks represented the agency in a very professional manner. I did attend the governor's recognition for employees with 30 or more years on, and it was a pleasure to go there with Debbie Wheat. It was actually interesting because Debbie and I both graduated from Laramie High School, and when I introduced her, I said I wouldn't say who graduated first, but we could discuss that later. And the governor continues to recognize employees with 30 plus years, and Andrea, who's with us today, will be attending that in the future. In addition to that, the governor's the Governor's Natural Resource Policy Committee met and working on cheatgrass, the Squirrel Creek Fire Rehabilitation Project that the Commission approved during your last meeting has been selected as the pilot project under the Natural Policy Advisory Committee as the cheatgrass control project for the state of Wyoming. We're currently working with the Department of Ag and also state lands to expand that project. So hopefully we can make that not only a benefit for mule deer as our intent, but also a showcase project for the entire state of Wyoming. Under legislative activities, we didn't have any legislative activities in the last month. However, there has been some changes in the Travel, Recreation, and Wildlife Committee meeting agenda schedule that I would like to pass to you. They will now meet on June 16th and 17th in Lander. The August 4th and 5th meeting in Kimmerer stands, and then they will meet October 6th and 7th in Sundance. Please recall that heretofore there was a December meeting and not a June meeting. So again, we would encourage the commissioners to attend that if at all possible.
Director Talbot, I'm so sorry, but I didn't get those written down. Would you mind repeating them?
June 16th and 17th in Lander. August 4th and 5th in Kimmerer. And October 6th and 7th in Sundance, Wyoming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members of the commission, I was able to attend a portion of the Wildlife Supervisors meeting. In addition to that, I had the honor and privilege of going down to the Wyoming Law Enforcement Academy and watching 5 of our new recruits graduate from that establishment. The Wyoming Game and Fish Department has a long track record of excellence, performance at the Law Enforcement Academy, and this class was no exception. Mr. Dylan Bergman was selected as the honor graduate of this class of Academy graduates, and Kristen DeVannen was recognized for her academic excellence as well. So our recruitment and retention of game wardens continues to shine brightly upon the agency. In addition to that, with a few of the commissioners that were in town yesterday, we were able to attend a pinning ceremony and wish those folks the very best in their career as law enforcement officers and game wardens for the Wyoming Game and Fish Department. I attended the all-region meeting in Jackson and Pinedale, and also attended a budget subcommittee meeting with the commission and looked at budget proposals. There will be some additional changes for the commission's consideration as we move into finalizing that budget for the July meeting. We continue to work very closely as a team to sponsor the Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Conference. That will be this July. We're finalizing that and moving forward with that. I was also able to participate in the graduation ceremony for leadership development, and that's an outstanding program, and I would encourage the commissioners to continue to be involved in that as they can be, and also thank the commission for your support of that. The recruitment and retention, as I mentioned earlier, continues to be a key issue for this agency, and this will be the last meeting for Regional Supervisor Joe Gilbert before he enters into retirement, and we've also been notified that Supervisor Steve DeCecco, after 19 years of being the supervisor in Green River, will join the ranks of retired employees later on this summer. But I would like to congratulate Craig Smith, South Cody Game Warden, as being selected as the Sheridan Supervisor, and we will be announcing the Green River Supervisor position in the very near future. The department hosted the 33rd Annual Conservation Stamp Show. That was a mallard duck this year, and the winner of that competition was also the individual who won the National Youth Waterfowl Stamp Contest for the entire country. So a young man out of Rock Springs was very, very excited Entries were up significantly from last year. I believe we had just over 70 entries this year, and we had artists from 17 states, and 43 of those artists were Wyoming artists. In an effort to continue to promote the Conservation Stamp Art Contest, we have announced this year's subject will be the badger, and then next year will be the 30th anniversary of the mule deer on our conservation stamp, and we thought it was appropriate to recommend that species because of all of the work that has been done not only by the department with support of the commission and the public on that iconic species in Wyoming. And 2020, the Colorado cutthroat trout will be the subject for the art show. This will be the first time that we have ever announced that far in advance, and hopefully we can continue to promote the art aspect of the conservation stamp. I attended the brucellosis coordination team meeting in Pinedale. The department continues to play a key role in the management and surveillance of that disease throughout the state of Wyoming. I was also asked to be a guest presenter, give a guest presentation at the Colorado State University Wildlife Management short course. That is a course that we have been very involved with since our inception. I attended the Casper chapter of the National Wild Turkey Federation banquet and Casper, and I mentioned that, and that there is a lot of employees, and I attend as many of those functions as I can. But I actually, in last month's issue of Wyoming Wildlife, recognized those chapters and their contribution to wildlife. But I would also like to recognize the High Plains chapter of Pheasants Forever. That banquet was attended by John Kennedy, and they have an outstanding youth program, and their youth program this year contributed $250 to the department's Access Yes program. And I would just like to mention that, commend those folks for their efforts, and there's many of those NGOs that provide a lot of support, and I will try to recognize them as we go forward. But I mentioned earlier our efforts with WAFWA and sponsoring WAFWA this year. Not only have all the commissioners stepped forth there, but the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation has stepped forward and contributed $10,000 to that effort this year. That's far and away more than any previous contributions to that conference. I co-chaired a meeting of the Animal Damage Management Board, which by statute I sit on. In addition to that, a few things that I would like to bring to your attention is that we continue as an agency to revise the Commission's grizzly bear management plan. We will be having a meeting on that on May 11th. I would like to recognize the efforts of Chief of our Wildlife Division, Brian Nesvik, and also the section leader for our trophy game section, Dan Thompson. Those two individuals went out and contacted over 500 people in the last 2 weeks in public meetings throughout the state of Wyoming to get the public's input on that proposed grizzly bear management plan for your consideration. I would like to thank those individuals again for that outstanding effort as they move forward. The department has been very engaged through OFWA and as an agency in the National Blue Ribbon Panel. Please recall that was a panel that former Governor Dave Friedenthal and the owner of Bass Pro Shops, Johnny Morris, co-chaired on a national level. They were looking for additional funding for non-game species, not consumptive wildlife, and it was their recommendation, and there is an effort, a national effort, to set aside $1.3 billion of non-earmarked offshore oil and gas money for wildlife. That was a very successful endeavor on behalf of those two gentlemen, and we continue to work with that and look forward to that as it gets proposed to the United States Congress and move through that. Should that legislation pass as recommended by that blue ribbon panel, that will result in about $15 million of funding coming to the state of Wyoming on a cost share basis, very similar to what we do with Pittman Robertson and Dingle Johnson money. And you just had a presentation on that at the last meeting. So we will continue to keep you informed as that moves forward. In addition to that, we have partnered with many other entities in Wyoming to look at a study on the value of wildlife and hunting to Wyoming's economy. So we will report to you as that comes forward as well. This afternoon, the commission will be asked to promulgate rules and regulations on the hunting seasons, and I would just like to recap that very, very briefly but succinctly, and also emphasize the amount of effort that goes into that on behalf of the department. The recommendations that you will be seeing and considering this afternoon are the culmination of a year's worth of work on behalf of the department. There will be thousands of hours of data collection, thousands of hours of data analysis, and literally tens of thousands of public contacts with landowners and others that have gone into compiling those draft recommendations for your consideration. And I would just say that this is what we do as an agency, and there's been a tremendous amount of time and effort on behalf of the staff of the Wyoming Game and Fish Department that have gone in to providing those season recommendations for this coming fall. Just a quick overview of that. You will be seeing recommendations that include an increase of about 4,000 antelope licenses statewide, an additional 1,600 mule deer licenses statewide, an additional 1,400 white-tailed deer licenses statewide. You will see a recommendation that includes the reduction of about 1,400 elk licenses, but please remember that we have had record elk harvest over the last 4 years as well. You'll see recommendations for about 35 less moose licenses, about 8 more bighorn sheep licenses, and an additional 8 mountain goat licenses, and the justifications for that as we move forward with that season setting from the Wildlife Division. In closing, Commissioners, the Stop Poaching Association has provided some mugs over here. I would encourage all of you to help yourself to get a Stop Poaching mug, and those are available for the public after the commission. So with that, Madam Chairman, if you have any questions, I would certainly entertain them.
Questions for the director? Commissioner Culver.
Director, you talked about the National Blue Ribbon Task Force. So is there a date that they'll wrap that task force up, and are there other issues that they've brought forth that you can tell us about?
Madam President, Commissioner Culver, the initial charge of that task force was to look for alternative funding for non-game species, and that was the charge. That was the product that they delivered, and officially the task force has ended. They made that recommendation. The Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies will be taking that recommendation to Congress. There are, however, a few of those individuals that continue to be engaged in other issues with OFWA to help the association through some other issues, but the task force has officially ended.
Thank you.
Further, Commissioner Price.
I guess I'll ask if you introduce some of the people that we have here, introductions.
Absolutely, Mr. President, we can do that. So, any other questions?
No, but Director Talbot, I'd like to address something that you brought up about you mentioned the badge pinning ceremony that was held yesterday evening, and I just wanted to say that Commissioner Culver and Commissioner Price and I, as you mentioned, were able to attend that. And it was my understanding during that presentation that it was the first one that you were having of such. And I wanted to say that I thought it was it was certainly brief, but very, very nice presentation. And it was a great one to attend. Lots of red shirts there, which I thought was great for those new game wardens coming in. And it was quite moving, in my estimation, to watch all of those present game wardens and those of you who have been in the past together take the oath again. And it was a great ceremony in my estimation, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for having it. It was great.
Thank you. Other questions from the commission? If not, I guess I would follow up on Commissioner Price's request for introductions of staff. Madam Chairman, would you care to introduce the commission to start that off?
Yes, thank you, Director Talbot, and thank you, Commissioner Price. Good idea. So I'm Carrie Little. I'm the president of the commission this year, and I represent Region 4, which is Campbell, Johnson, and Sheridan counties.
My name is Commissioner David Rael. I represent Bighorn, Park County, and Washakie County and Hot Springs County.
Pat Crank, District 1, southeast part of the state, I guess. Welcome.
Charles Price, I'm Commissioner District 3. This would be southwest part, Uintah, Lincoln, Sublette, and Teton counties.
Mark Anselmi, representing Sweetwater, Carbon, and Albany counties.
Keith Culver, I'm District 6, Crook, Weston, and Niobrara counties.
And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Scott Talbot. I'm the director of the Wyoming Game and Fish Department. At this time, I would like to introduce our staff, our field folks, and those members of the audience. I would encourage you to stand up and introduce yourself as well. Carolyn, could we start over there with you, please? Tim or Terry?
Tim Bowling, Wildlife Management Coordinator at the Cody Region. Steve DeChenko, Green River Wildlife Supervisor. Jason Hunter, Atlanta Region Wildlife Supervisor. Tim Thomas, Sheridan Wildlife Biologist. Dan Kerr with Hunting with Heroes.
Jody Miller, Wyoming Wild Chief.
Jeff Tori, Wyoming EHA, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
Buzz Hedrick, Chairman, Wyoming Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Howard Mueller, Anderson Sportsman. Jay Huckmeyer, Troy Gilbert, Biologist.
Andrea Orlona, statewide non-game bird biologist.
I'm Rod Henry, I'm a landowner in Western Casper.
Leslie Miller. Kathy Boyle, Sheridan Regional Office Manager.
Doug Bremer, Wildlife Management Coordinator in Jackson, Pinedale. Brad Hopengate, Regional Wildlife Supervisor in Jackson. Red Brady, Habitat Access Branch Chief at Sheridan.
Karen Crossan, Teton National Park District Ranger.
Greg Smith, South Dakota Unicorn.
Rick King, Laramie Wildlife Supervisor.
Tony Albert, Sheridan Regional Wildlife Supervisor.
Steve Martin with Thorns, Wyoming.
Brian Olson, Regional Wildlife Supervisor in Casper.
Janet Miller, Public Information Specialist for the Casper region.
Tony Goodell, Director of the Wyoming Wildlife Foundation.
Sorry, I didn't see him back there.
Planning Applicant, Wyoming State Fire Marshal, also with Wyoming Last Team.
Mark Jim with Wyoming West Team, the Wyoming State Fire Marshal's Office.
Randy Vickers, Wyoming State Fire Chiefs.
Thank you, everyone.
Are you ready, Madam President?
Just a moment. Before we do that, we need to approve the minutes.
I will.
And then we will be ready. Thank you very much for being ready. All right, so I assume everyone has had a chance to read the executive minutes of the last executive meeting. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. We approve the minutes as presented.
Commissioner Price moves. Yes, second?
Second.
Commissioner Crank, seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. As said before, I assume everyone has read the minutes of the general meeting. Are there any additions or corrections?
I move we approve the minutes.
A motion has been made by Commissioner Culver to approve the general session meeting minutes.
Second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Price. All those in favor?
Aye.
Madam President,
Yes, Commissioner.
you suggested one correction that I thought was appropriate, so I assume the minutes we're approving have your correction included.
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry, and thank you for asking.
I vote aye, too.
Okay, all those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, and Mr. Nesvik, you are up. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, Director Talbot, members of the commission. It's my honor to start off our meeting here this morning by recognizing a couple of our employees who have been with the outfit for a combined half of a century. So I guess I want to start by asking Sheridan wildlife biologist Tim Thomas to join me up here at the podium. So we're recognizing Tim today for 25 years of service with the Wyoming Game and Fish Department. And step right on up here, buddy. All right. You are front and center. Thank you. All right. Tim hired on with us actually back in 1990 as a biotech or a biologist technician in Sebile. And then he moved over and worked in Whiskey Basin as a biologist technician, and then moved over to our brucellosis feed grounds and habitat crew over in Pinedale in 1991. He began his career as a wildlife biologist as a district wildlife biologist in 1992 in the Saratoga district. That's where I first got to know Tim. Worked close there to where Tim was at. Tim then, in 1997, lateraled to his current position where he serves as the Sheridan wildlife biologist. Tim is known around the agency and with those folks that he works with as being extremely intuitive. He's a very thoughtful, intelligent, and very competent wildlife manager and biologist. And he has a knack for being able to take very complex problems and be able to break them down and help other people understand them. That's one of the things that certainly comes to mind when I think of Tim. He's worked on some big issues. And I can't list all of them because there's so many of them in a 25-year career, but some of the things that come to mind for me with Tim is when he was in Saratoga, he worked on that mule deer situation, that mule deer population, when it was actually in quite a different state. And it was actually during a time when we first experienced a pretty large decline in that mule deer population. And it was certainly in the valley there, it was a big issue. And Tim helped the department and others maneuver through that situation. He also was there at a time when we had problems with meeting elk management objectives in particular the Sonoy Range, and a lot of elk damage in the area. And he helped out a lot, using his biological expertise, but also by getting his hands dirty and getting out and working with the rest of us to address some of those issues. In Sheridan, he's also dealt, with one of the more popular, or a couple of the real popular big game herds in our state, in the bighorns. He's been very active in elk management and is responsible for a portion of one of our most productive moose herds in the state there in the bighorns. He's also recently provided a significant amount of contribution and assistance with putting together all the historical information that the lawyers have needed to address the case with the tribal Mr. Herrera that you heard about in in a legal update, and the illegal activity up on our northern border. Tim provided a significant amount of the information and research that was required for those lawyers that were involved in that to deal with that case. He's known as a team player, like I talked about in his Saratoga days. He continues that tradition in his work in Sheridan, and I can attest personally to the fact that he's actually a fairly good pike fisherman. I don't remember exactly the longest fish, but we did have an opportunity to watch Tim catch some really, really big fish one time. That was pretty cool. Anyway, Tim, thank you for your service. We really appreciate it.
No, we'll have to look at our schedule.
All right, Madam President. And secondly, with 3 decades of service to our state, I would ask that Ms. Andrea Orbono join me up here at the podium. Just like Tim, I'm going to remind you to get right up here in front. There you go. So, as I said, we're honoring Andrea for 30 years of service to our state and to our wildlife. Andrea started in 1989 as a biologist aide in Lander. And then she was actually a special deputy warden. Back then, we had that position in our state in 1989 for a short period of time, and then transferred back to being a biologist in Lander. She transferred to the co-op unit in '90, and then back up to Lander as a biologist in 1992, and she served there ever since. She spent most of her career in Lander, which actually, for what Andrea does, is a perfect place because she is she's the statewide non-game bird biologist. And so what that means for in layman's terms is she is the ultimate bird nerd. And there is nothing that Andrea cannot tell you about non-game and, for that matter, game birds in the state of Wyoming. She's extremely competent, very knowledgeable, and I think that her fellow employees and the people she works with would probably describe a couple of different things about Andrea. I know this is certainly something that comes to mind for me, and one is that she is extremely passionate about her work, and she does an exceptional job of inspiring others to understand very complex biological issues because of the passionate way in which she approaches articulating the important things that she does. And I think the other thing that people would talk about with Andrea is her ability to be really part of that game and fish family in Lander, and also because of her position, she has an opportunity to work with folks statewide, and she's known as really a team player, and she always has a smile on her face. She's always happy to be at work, and after 30 years, she continues to, like I said, inspire others with her passion for what she does. She is known, and she's had the opportunity. One thing that's unique about our statewide non-game program is that there's a lot of opportunities there to do short-term projects, and really what ends up happening there is that means we hire these temporary folks that come in and they spend 3 or 4 months on a project, and then they go on to another temporary job. And so Andrea has had the opportunity over 30 years to have a huge influence on a lot of those, on just a wide variety of different folks that have been working for our agency. And many of those folks that she inspired and that she taught and that she coached went on to become permanent employees for our agency. So she's really left a mark that way, not just with her work on non-game birds, but also on her work in coaching and inspiring other employees, new employees to our agency. And so we really thank Andrea for that. Absolute pleasure to work with her, and I sure appreciate all your service to our state and to our wildlife. All right, Madam President, I think we have, before we do the grizzly bear update, I think we have members here from the Wyoming Fire Chiefs Association. Gentlemen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Madam President, Commissioners, thank you very much. We're honored to be here. As far as introductions go, this is Lanny Applegate is the Director of the Department of Fire Prevention and Electrical Safety with the state of Wyoming, otherwise known, more commonly known as the State Fire Marshal's Office. He's my boss. I'm the Deputy Director or the Assistant Fire Marshal with the state of Wyoming. And I'm also Wyoming Last Team's co-coordinator, and standing next to me is Randy Vickers, retired Laramie Fire Chief, representative of the Wyoming Fire Chiefs, and is my partner with the Wyoming Last Team as a co-coordinator. A couple things we'd like to do today, and the first thing is to thank you for just a few moments in front of you today to give thanks, and then to just give a brief overview of the team so that you know how we use the funds. We were blessed to receive a commissioner's tag from Commissioner Clouda this year, which sold in about 10 by the Wyoming Wildlife Foundation. They sold it for us, and it sold within 10 minutes of it went online. And we got the buy-it price now of $13,000. We have taken 50% of that and donated it back to the Access Yes program. We don't have a big check for you today, but I understand that the foundation has already made that donation. So we wanted to tell you about that and thank Commissioner Clouda, which we have done personally. And then we were also extremely blessed recently to receive another tag from Commissioner Rial, and we split that with the Wyoming Bow Hunters, and that went for $11,500, and so we ended up with $5,750. And we want to announce today that we want to donate, and we'll send a check to Access Yes out of our portion for $1,000 back. So thank you very much, Commissioner Ryle and Commissioner Clouda. And we're proud to be a partner with you in the Access Yes program. Just a moment, you're probably wondering, well, who the heck is the Wyoming Last Team? And I'm going to do this in just a couple minutes. We've given you a little more specificity in the form of information that you have in front of you so that you can read at your leisure. But we are a team that's a program of the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation and the Wyoming Fire Chiefs, and supported directly by the Department of Fire Prevention and Electrical Safety. We are one of 50 teams. Every state in the union has a last team. Randy and I are the coordinators and lead the team. We've been stood up for about, 5 years maybe now. Time flies. The primary mission of the team under the foundation is to provide direct support and services to firefighters who have lost their life killed during the line of duty. And what we do as a team is we go in and we support the family directly in that tragic event. We support the department, and we act as a beneficiary officer for behalf of the surviving family, and we make sure that we apply for their one-time death benefit of $330,000 to that surviving spouse and family, which is through the Department of Justice. It's a pretty onerous system getting an application through that Department of Justice, but we've been successful with a few of them now. So one of our goals is to assist in that death benefit for the surviving family. And then the second thing is we want to provide we help and provide a shopping cart, in essence, of services to that family and that department. And many times in a line of duty death, the department is very obviously a tragic event, and they become more overwhelmed in their resource management, and support of the family is a serious issue. So what we do is we have resources. We form partnerships all over the state of Wyoming. We have the largest team in the United States. We have 70-some members in many partnerships around the state. And we come in and we meet with the family and the department, and we say, what can we do for you? We'll put on the memorial service for you. We will do all the benefits. We'll do the after-action stuff. We'll do graveside services. We'll support you in anything. We're, in essence, kind of that ghost team. We don't want to be recognized. We want to be in the background and just out of sight, out of mind, managing an event for that department and that family. And we have done that. Unfortunately, we've had that those missions in the state in the last 5 years. So to wrap this up, though, I want to say that, you know, those foundation missions of line of duty deaths for firefighters are all funded by the foundation. Okay, so funding for our team on a line of duty death is no big issue. Where the funding need comes in is we are programming. We watched the movie where they said, I can't remember the movie, the baseball movie, but build it and they will come, sort of a concept. Yeah. What was that movie's name? We built it, and now all these people are coming, and it's grown into a program that also does non-line of duty active death support for not only firefighters, but law enforcement, EMTs, game and fish. We are there for all of the public safety employees in the event of a death. If the family needs the assistance, if the department needs the assistance, we have the resources. We have all of the resources to help put that on, to help support the family. And now it's even grown to the fact that we have retirees in public safety arena across the state of Wyoming who have asked for support, and families of those retirees who have passed have asked for our support. And on average, we're doing supporting at least one funeral or memorial service each month on behalf of the family to make sure that they have a special and honorable event for that public safety officer, whether it be active or retiree. And we do want to make it clear that we are a team here for the Wyoming Game and Fish and its officers. If there's any needs, any services, any trainings, anything that we can do to assist, the director and the department, the commissioners, we're there for you. So that's kind of a general overview. Randy, did I miss anything? But the funds, we figure our budget right now, in order to be self-sustaining a year, is about $10,500. So we are constantly looking for donations, and the state of Wyoming and its fire service and the citizens, and especially the commissioners, have been gracious in those donations to keep us going. Without those funds, we would go back to that original mission of just providing for line of duty death. So any questions, Madam President or commissioners?
Well, before we seek other comments from the rest of the commission, I'd just like to say thank you, gentlemen, for your organization and for the service that you've provided, as well as the donations back to the Access program. We certainly appreciate that as well. And do any of the other commissioners have comments or questions?
Mark, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much.
If not, thank you so much.
Madam President, members of the commission, Director Talbot. So maybe we'll start with a small town. Hey, Mark, hold up just a second. I gotta tell a small town or a small Wyoming story. So 30 years ago, I actually worked for Mark. Today was the first time I've seen him in 30 years. And he and my uncle were firemen together here in Casper, and they moonlighted by owning a automatic sprinkler repair and installation business. And so when I was about 13 or 14 years old, I actually worked for Mark, so it's pretty cool to see him here today. So Wyoming's a small town.
Well, I don't, well, no, I won't. I was going to say he kept his hair. Sorry.
He did. He
Madam
did.
President, he mentioned to me on the side that he's amazed how you turned out.
I could tell some stories. I actually didn't only work for him, I actually spent some time at the lake with him too, and so I could tell some. All right, so, Madam President, I did want to I'm not going to take a lot of time this morning, but I did want to give the commission an update on where we're at with the public feedback and update of your grizzly bear management plan. I wanted to talk about that and just kind of give you a status of where we're at and what the plan forward is. As Director Talbot mentioned this morning, we have been engaged over the last few weeks with really trying to gather some input from our publics and to look hard at this plan and to have folks provide us critical review of that plan. And so really that's what I'm going to focus on here today. This discussion, as you're all aware, I just want to make it very clear, is in no way whatsoever related to the season setting discussion that'll go on in 3 or 4 agenda items. This is strictly about our grizzly bear management plan that we're in the middle of trying to update so that we can present it to you on May 11th. As the director indicated this morning, we have, the department is engaged in 8 different public meetings, and 2 of those were actually able to be broadcast, just like your commission meetings are, live, so that anybody in the world could view those. And then we actually placed recordings of those YouTube videos on the website so that people could go back if they didn't have an opportunity to attend one of the meetings. They could go back and watch the presentation and become familiar with the plan. We've received between 400 and 500 comments. We're analyzing all those now, and those are actual written comments that we received either posted online or through our written comment process. And so really what we're doing with those is we've got a team that's taken those and analyzing the major themes and kind of compartmentalizing them so that we can break them down and identify major themes and major issues. You're going to receive either tonight or in the morning all of those comments. We'll share those with you. The comment period is closed now, and so you'll have them to read, but also please keep in mind that when we talk to you on May 11th, we will do our best to summarize the major themes in those comments and address those that we feel are appropriate to address. Some of the trends that we heard as we traveled around the state and talked about the management plan is obviously, I think, probably the number one issue for those that were on all sides of this issue was hunting. Hunting came up and was discussed at every meeting. And I know several of you attended those meetings, but for those that weren't, the way that we presented those is we essentially took about an hour and presented the major components of the plan as well as a history of how we got to where we're at today with regards to the grizzly bear population in the Yellowstone ecosystem. And then we took about a half an hour to as much as 45 minutes to answer clarifying questions from the audience on their questions on the plan. And we did focus it entirely on the recommended or the draft plan. After that, then, we allowed the public to provide testimony, just as you do when you solicit public comments here at your commission meeting. So anyway, hunting was, like I said, that was a major item that a lot of folks were definitely interested in. There were not only a lot of discussions about that in the meetings, but there was a lot of discussions on the site about that. And my prediction is that you will hear significant public comment on both sides of the issue with regards to hunting when we proceed down the road with additional chapters in our regulations. Conflict was certainly another issue that stood out. It came up at nearly every meeting, and when I talk about conflict, I mean everywhere from hunters that were concerned about coming in contact with grizzly bears while they were hunting in the backcountry to folks that were concerned about the way that we currently address conflict in cooperation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and people that were opposed to removals of bears and any kind of deviation from a 2 strikes or a 3 strikes kind of a rule. There was a lot of discussion about connectivity between the Yellowstone ecosystem and Glacier, or what's the fancy name for that, it's the Northern Continental Divide ecosystem. And we'll be addressing those as well. A lot of discussion about roadside bears, and then also economics and requests from the public to include discussions about economics in the grizzly bear management plan. There was a lot of discussion about the previous and past investments by the commission and the state of Wyoming, as well as what commitments might be there for the future with regards to funding. And then there was definitely discussions on the impacts of grizzly bears and other large carnivores on ungulates. Again, we're going to summarize all that for you. It'll be a much more detailed briefing. I suspect that the May 11th meeting will take about an hour to an hour and a half to present our recommended plan to you. You will have an opportunity to look at the changes that were made from when the draft plan went out to the public and the final plan that we present to you, and we already have identified changes that we're working on making now. You'll be able to see what those are. And then we will move following your approval of the plan. And obviously at that meeting, just like anything else, you'll have the option and the opportunity to make modifications there if you wish. After that, the approval of that plan, we will not long after that, within about 2 to 3 weeks, be putting out for public comment Chapter 67, which will be the management framework. Again, not hunting seasons, hunt areas, those kind of things, but the overarching management framework regulation. We'll put it out for public comment in May and probably bring it to the commission for approval in September. For those of you that were engaged and involved in the wolf regulations, this Chapter 67 would be equivalent to Chapter 21 for wolves. Remember, with wolves, we had two different chapters, one with the management framework and one was more directed at seasons. We're planning on doing the same exact thing with grizzly bears, and so you most likely, unless we receive different direction from you, you will not see anything related to seasons until after delisting is finalized. The other thing that I would like to encourage you to do is if between now and May 11th, if you've got questions or you've got things that you think need to be identified for change, please give me a call and I'll be glad to discuss those with you and talk about how those might be incorporated into the plan. With that, I think I will stop and ask if any of you have questions.
Commissioner Anselmi, did you have a question? Okay. Commissioner Price?
I don't have a question, but I wanted to commend Brian and Dan on the presentation that they gave to our over in Pinedale, and I'm sure that they're the same everywhere they went. They did say they became more polished as they moved along.
Yes.
But you did a really good job, Brian,
Thank you.
and thank you.
Other questions? Quick question. So I know you're in the process of making revisions. When do you think you might, ahead of the May 11th meeting, be able to get us an updated version? Just for us to read ahead of time.
Yeah, what we'd
and
like to
study?
do is provide that with the changes so that you can see the changes about 1 week before the meeting.
Okay.
It's taken us quite a while to get through all these comments and then to also make the edits to the plan, as well as put together a presentation for all of you. And so that's kind of the holdup. But yeah, our goal is to have it to you about a week in advance so you can review it.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. There's no other questions. I want to thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
And I believe Meredith Wood is next. Thank you for being so ready.
Good morning, President
morning.
Little, Commissioners, Director Talbot. I'm here, Meredith Wood, Chief Fiscal Officer, agenda item number 5 regarding the FY16 transfer of revenues. So under,
Hey Meredith, you might
Can you
bend
hear
that
me?
down, it's really hard to hear you.
is that better? would you like me to repeat anything? Shooting over my head. Annually, the commission, under Wyoming Statute 23-1501C, is authorized to approve up to 6% of the lifetime license fund balance be transferred into our Game and Fish Commission operating fund for distribution under future budget periods. So that's what I'm here today to request the commission approval to transfer 6% of the balance of that fund. The balance of the fund as of the end of March is at 5.3 million, so the 6% transfer will be right around 320,000. We do have 2 additional months of revenue to account for, so it will be slightly higher than that, if approved. So with that, if there's any questions regarding the lifetime license fund request to transfer up to 6%?
Madam President?
Commissioner Crank.
So, Meredith, are we talking, over the past several meetings, the commission received information that we had approximately $54 million in our operating fund, and the commission took action to set aside $31.5 million, which would assure us of 6 months of continuing operation with absolutely no income coming in.
President
Are we
Little.
talking about transferring to that same operating fund?
President Little, Commissioner Crank, that's correct. These would be additional dollars into the same operating fund. The $31.5 million has been set aside, and we are operating on the balance for additional expenses for the investment of wildlife.
What
those
happens if we don't, if the commission should decide this year not to transfer to that fund, would those funds just carry over in this lifetime license account until such time as we decided to transfer later?
President Little, Commissioner Crank, annually up to 6% can be transferred of the balance. So yes, if you choose not to take that 6% out and move it to the operating fund, it will stay in the lifetime account and the balance will grow. Annually, however, we can only transfer up to 6%. So we can't go back and say the FY16 6% we now want to withdraw, and so on and so forth. So, for example, last year it was about 315,000, I believe, off of the total balance. So that it just went over to our operating fund for redistribution in later periods. Same this year. If that does not occur next year, again, you can only transfer up to 6%. So it'll be a little greater than 300,000 next year.
I understand that. Does the lifetime license fund, is that an interest-bearing account?
President Little, Commissioner Crank, it is an interest-bearing account, and the interest is contained within the account. So it's a total balance, including interest.
Does our what we call the Game and Fish Operating Fund, is that an interest-bearing account?
President Little, Commissioner Crank, absolutely. Yes, all of our accounts are interest-bearing and invested through the State Treasurer's Office.
So whether we transfer it or not, we're probably going to draw the same interest on the funds.
That's correct.
That's all I have, Madam President.
Commissioner Price, did you have a question?
Well, following this discussion and considering that we have in our operating fund sufficient funds beyond the reserve, I'd say that we just leave this in. I'd make the motion that we leave this in the lifetime fund.
I'd second the motion for discussion purposes.
Okay, so the motion is made to not transfer the 6% by Commissioner Price and seconded by Commissioner Crank. Discussion?
Madam Chairman,
Commissioner Anselmi.
so this was set up, so is there any thing in the law that you can never access the fund, or what was can you give a little history, or not a long story, but?
President Little, Commissioner Anselmi, the fund was established by the Wyoming Game and Fish Commission and the legislature, and there was a law, Wyoming statute put on that account that basically it's a corpus account. You can't touch the balance except for this one annual approval through the commission's authorization to transfer up to 6% of the balance. So that includes any interest that has been gained on the account, and of course, all deposits from the sale of lifetime licenses into the account. And a side note, perhaps, over the last 5 years, the annual revenue from those sales is right around $470,000. That's the average over the last 5 years. So right now, the 6% is not equivalent to the total revenues going in annually, and that balance we can't touch. It's only the 6% per year that can go to the operating fund for distribution and use if you so choose.
Follow-up.
Commissioner Anselmi, keep.
I know
you
you've
have the
explained this to me before, but there you got so many. Then is there an account for the conservation stamps too or something? Isn't there another account where some money go?
President Little, Commissioner Anselmi, the lifetime conservation stamps are not deposited into this account at all. 50% goes into Access and 50% goes into the trust fund corpus, and that's the account we cannot touch at all. Only the interest can be spent on an annual basis.
Now, is
And
that
that you approve through this regular budget process.
That's a different trust fund.
That's correct.
How much is in that one? Do you know?
27.7 is in the corpus, and there's 3.1 in the interest right now.
Can
So-
I ask a,
Oh, I'm sorry, you still have the floor.
well, what is your idea? I lost you guys. What's the idea of this?
Well, here, if I might, before they answer that, because it may be part and parcel to this. So here would be my question: if we, normally, we transfer approximately 6%, which you have estimated each year, the estimated figure. So it would be my assumption that that may be an amount that you have figured in some way into operating.
President Little, the transfer of these funds have zero impact on next year's budget, for example. That is already accounted for with projected revenues and operating fund balance, as Commissioner Crank mentioned. So the transfer of these dollars does not have a direct impact on us being able to do business in the immediate future. So the transfer of these dollars would put them in the operating fund, which we know we do not, revert or lose any dollars out of there either. It's just accessible to the Commission for Distribution if that's what you decide to do.
Thank you. Now, you,
Charles, do you want to answer Mark's question, or can I take a stab at it?
Oh, go ahead.
Mark, I think the idea is we have, but because of several reasons, because prior commissions have been incredibly frugal and very conservative, because of an increase in the availability of Pittman-Robertson funds and Dingle-Johnson funds, we currently have, a $54 million operating reserve fund. I think we've taken the very appropriate and very conservative step to set aside $31.5 million of that won't be touched, so that if the whole world went to hell in a handbasket, the department could continue to manage our important wildlife for at least 6 months with no revenue whatsoever, in that nightmare scenario, which I can't imagine how that would occur. But so we can either leave these funds where they currently exist in the account, or we can transfer it over to the department and to the budget for available spending. And I think Commissioner Price's thought was, if we already have sufficient funds for the upcoming year to operate the department and engage in the necessary things we need to invest in our wildlife and continue our appropriate conservative actions, why would we transfer?
Well, following up on that,
That was your point, wasn't it, Charles?
I think that, I would ask one question. If we try to make sure we understand this, if we leave this in there, this becomes part of the principle of the body, which becomes, we cannot get it, bring it out.
President Little, Commissioner Price, you can't bring it out at the 6% that it's worth today. Next year, you can take out 6%. Of course, the total balance in the account is what it is today, plus any revenue earned next year, and only 6% can then be removed next
So
year.
what we'd be doing is deferring this, the interest on, defer the amount. We would later collect interest on this marginal amount that we've left in, right?
President Little, either way, we would be collecting interest. It would be in our operating fund, which we don't have earmarked 100%, or it stays in the lifetime license fund, also interest-bearing. So in both scenarios, interest would be accrued. It's just a matter of the total balance in this lifetime license fund. You can only transfer up to 6% of the total each year.
President Little?
Yeah, Commissioner Culver.
And by my calculations, if we leave this money in that fund, in future years, it will ensure that we'll have nearly $14,000 more per year available to us to draw out because of the interest on this additional money.
To transfer at 6% out of this account, that's correct, yes.
So for that reason, I support this, leaving it in.
Commissioner, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you
You're
were.
good.
Right. Commissioner Anselmi.
President Little, your point's well taken, Commissioner, but the Dingle Johnson, we have to find 25% to match it, right? So even though so you have to have money to get their money. So like this one we got coming up, this choke cherry, they're asking for, $105,000, is that correct? Where's, everybody's left.
But we have adequate items in our budget, Meredith, this year to match, for our matching 25% on the PRDJ funds.
President Little, Commissioner Culver, that's correct, we do.
Well, how did we know that if I mean, when you did the budget, you didn't know about these deer projects coming up, did you, or did you?
Commissioner Anselmi, not specifically, I didn't know, for example, each and every migration project and its total value. We go through the budget process and we don't earmark this specific dollar will be reimbursable.
Right.
This specific program will be reimbursable. And so we consider all revenue that we have available to us and total anticipated expenditures. So with that, even with the addition of these few projects, if there was a big shortage in our operating fund, for example, we probably wouldn't be authorizing additional dollars to fund these projects regardless of their reimbursable potential. So with the balance that we have right now, the budget that we've preliminarily presented and had approved in March, the projects that have been presented in March and funded by the commission, which will come back for final approval under that budget in July, we have the capacity to cover that.
Madam President,
Commissioner Craig.
if I might, Commissioner Anselmi, if you'll recall the presentation in Rollins, because of increased gun sales and ammunition sales, our allocation under the Pittman-Robertson Act specifically has gone up, and you're exactly right. We don't get those funds just in a lump sum. We have to engage in projects that provide our 25% match, and then we're reimbursed out of that pot of money held by the Fish and Wildlife Service. But I think based on the presentation we heard in Rollins, there is some danger that we could actually not be able to capture the full amount of the Pittman-Robertson funds in fiscal year 2018. So the problem you envision by not transferring this money, we won't have appropriate funds to capture all the Pittman-Robertson and Dingle Johnson funds is not a problem. It's actually, the danger is that in 2018, if those Pittman-Robertson funds continue to grow at the level they've grown in the past several years, that we may leave federal funds on the table. But clearly, that doesn't occur till like 2018 at the earliest, and it all depends on what forecast you look at with regard to what Pittman-Robertson may do. There are some more conservative forecasts, and then there are other people that believe, particularly with this election cycle, and that with you know, the possibility of electing another Democratic president, you might see Pittman Robertson go through the roof, because there'd be continued increased gun sales and ammunition sales in fear of what that new Democratic administration might do.
Okay, so I might be, so say you have a project for $100,000. We got to put up 25,000 to get the 75 from them. We never get our 25 from them, or is that wrong?
We put up 25 and get back 100, right?
Can I break in here? If we have a $100,000 project that we want to do, and it is Pittman Roberts eligible, then we've got to put in $100,000 and get that project done and get it approved. Then we get back $75,000.
Yeah, so it's costing us 25.
It nets out, would cost us 25, but we've got to do the project first.
Okay, so that's where, I'm with you, and that's what I thought it was. So to get Pittman Robinson, we still have to put in money,
We have to put it in up front.
and then you can only get back 3/4 of what you put in.
Yeah, yes.
So Commissioner Anselmi, your concern is very valid. You wanted to know from Meredith, are we going to have that, do we have the 100% to put up front? And that's what you were asking, and I'm understanding from you, Meredith, that you're assuring us that you do have that, because there is a time period in which we have to wait to get that 75% back.
That's correct.
So your concern was valid.
No, and then the 25, I mean, everybody throws this Pittman Robinson Act at us, but it's still costing us money. It's going to cost us $25,000 for a $100,000 deal.
Right.
So I see that 300 being put in there to, or whatever this, to fund some of those, to do that 25% match that we do. If we let this 300 stay in that fund, we never get, well, we're going to get the interest on it. What did the treasurer get on our funds last year? Do you know? Is there
President Little, Commissioner Anselmi, interest is running about 2%.
two?
2. And that's on our operating fund and this fund.
I know
so,
last year was a bad year, but that's what,
yeah.
So Meredith, quick question. So interest that we earn is the same in both funds?
That's correct. So if I might try and clarify this a little bit, you have your lifetime license fund. You can't touch any money in that fund except for once a year you have the opportunity as a commission to authorize the transfer of up to 6% of that balance. This particular year, it's roughly $320,000. You have your operating fund. You have all the flexibility as the commission to spend that fund in any which way, shape, or form you see fit. Both funds earn interest. If you transfer your up to 6% from this fund to this fund, the money doesn't go anywhere until the commission says it's approved to go somewhere. Both funds earn interest, and next year you have the opportunity, while it's still earning revenue through the sale of those lifetime licenses, again, to transfer up to 6%. So either way, whether you choose to do it today or not, the money is not being distributed to anything in particular. And even if you approve a project today, it's not to say that that 320 is what funded it. We have funds in our operating fund. We have earmarked some of the 25 million, that is the balance, the estimated balance after the 31.5 million to carry us through a doomsday situation, if you will, a 6 months reserve. So it's entirely up to the commission. If you choose to move it over to the operating fund and you have projects that you want to invest in wildlife in, and the 25 million that we've been discussing for those investment opportunities is earmarked, you'll have some flexibility. Other than that, you can wait another year.
That would be my quick comment, would be that I don't see any monetary gain in leaving it, and I see some flexibility to be gained in moving it. So that would just be my comment.
Madam President, if I might, let me try to make it simpler. I have $200 in my checking account, and I can transfer, I have the discretion to transfer 50 from my savings account to my checking account. But my estimate is I only need to spend 150 of my checking account in the coming year. So should I leave the $50 in my savings account, or should I transfer it to my checking account so it could be more available for expenditure? I mean, that's the issue.
but Commissioner Crank, excuse me, you're never gonna be able to touch that 50, if you didn't take that $50 out of your savings account today, you're never gonna, you left that part of the story out. You're never gonna be taking that, you decide not to take it today, you can never be able to get the interest off your savings account, but you will never be able to access that $50
Not
again.
entirely, Mark, because we have the discretion on any given year to transfer 6% of the balance of this account to our operating accounts. So I can't do the math right now, but I assume some of the $50 may go into a permanent fund that can't be touched, but not all of the $50. My point is just, we don't need the money now, why would we transfer it? But I guess I'd call for the question.
Can I?
Yes, you may.
There-
You may continue.
Okay, the thing is, we're transferring 6%. The money in the account is growing at roughly 2%. So if we transfer 6%, we are taking the principal, reducing that to get the other 4%. We'd have there. So we are entering in there, taking part of the principal out of that if we transfer the 6%.
That's a good point.
All we did was take, and, you know, the interest rate's the same, but as long as the interest rate is less than
6%.
the amount we can transfer, we're transferring out of the principal of that account.
Well, I hate to belabor it. One fast question. What's been the historic return what the treasurer's got for us? Like it's 2% this year. Do you have any recollection what it's been in the past?
President Little, Commissioner Anselmi, I don't have the specific details, but I know it has ranged between 3.5 and 2 is the low, so
Oh, that's it.
it may have even been higher than that, but I can look it up and bring that back to you.
That's
President Little, the question's been called for,
Okay.
but there's one comment I would make.
Sure, you're welcome to.
Every year we can leave this in there, we're increasing the amount that we can take out in future years by roughly $14,000, and that'll grow in the future also.
Madam
Any-
President, may I? please?
Yes, you may.
If we don't do
Lyle.
anything today, Meredith, can we do something if something happened and we needed that money during the course of the year? Can we do it at the next meeting or the next meeting or the next meeting? Does it have to be done today?
President Little, Commissioner Rael, the statute says annually the balance. The end of the fiscal year is June 30th. We have historically made the cutoff the end of May because transfers have to be done in the final month. So that's the timeline we're working with.
All right, we do have a motion, if there's no further discussion. The motion is that we not approve transfer of 6% of the lifetime license fund balance this year. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Okay, thank
We
you.
will not be transferring. Thank you very much,
Thank
Meredith,
you.
for your presentation. And Jean Cole.
Good morning, Madam President, members of the Commission, Director Talbot, Jean Cole, the Chief of the Fiscal Division. I'm here to present to you a Commission Agenda Item Number 6, which is the appointment of licensed selling agents. The department has received 3 applications for your consideration today. 2 of those are for a transfer of ownership to new owners of businesses, and 1 is a brand-new application for an appointment of a licensed agent. The first transfer is the Friendly Store and Motel located in Centennial, Wyoming, which is in Commissioner Anselmi's district. They're located off of Highway 130. They've been an agent since 2006, and they sell licenses on a year-round basis. The second transfer is the Fast Stop, which was formerly known as Orrin Junction Truck Stop in Orrin, Wyoming. That's in Commissioner Cloudis' district. They've been an agent since 2002, also full agent selling licenses all year. We have a new application to consider today, which was received from the Wyoming Minuteman Supply in Thane, Wyoming. They applied as a sporting goods business, and the local warden, Todd Graham, has done an evaluation, and they are a full-service sporting goods store. Their entire inventory is firearms, ammunition, hunting, camping equipment. So he has qualified them as a sporting goods vendor. So the department would like the commission to approve the transfer of our 2 license agents and accept the application and appoint Wyoming Minuteman Supply as a vendor.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
I'd move that we authorize the license selling appointments and approve the new vendor.
I second the motion.
Okay, so that is a motion made by Commissioner Crank to approve and seconded by Commissioner Rael. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the commission, Director Talbot, I'm also here this morning to present Commission Agenda Item Number 7, which is our donated license program. I have with me today Jennifer Charlie, who is our license accounting coordinator. I'd like to introduce Jennifer. She is the person for the department that administers this program, and I've asked her to come today to help answer any questions you may have regarding this program. In addition, we have representatives here today from Hunting with Heroes, Mr. Dan Carraw, and he will also address the commission and give some information on his organization. So I'd like to take just a few minutes to give you a brief overview of the donated license program, so you have an understanding of how this program works, so that you can understand the process, and if you have any questions, we're more than happy to answer those questions. So first of all, the legislature in 2011 enacted statutory authority allowing for any individual that has a big game license to surrender that license to the department for reissuance to any individual that is a veteran with a disability qualifying for that license. And the provisions in the statutory law required certain provisions for that particular transfer of a license. And one of those is that the license should be issued to the disabled veteran for no additional cost to that individual. Also, whatever license is been donated back to the department must be reissued for the exact same species, the same hunt area, and the same type. So there can be no change in how the license was originally issued to how that license is reissued. There was some provisions also in this laws that provide for, it doesn't matter if it was a resident individual that originally received the license, it can be reissued to a resident or a non-resident. So there's no qualifications in terms of a split of so many of the donated licenses have to go to residents and so many have to go to non-residents. It's available to any person that qualifies for the license. And they can obtain that license without going through any kind of limited quota drawing or allocation process. And another feature of that donation is that if you're fortunate enough to have received a donated big game license for bighorn sheep or moose or also mountain goat, the person who gets that donated license is not under the same restriction of having to wait that 5-year period to reapply in the future for a license. So they're exempt from that provision in statutory language. And one of the really good, I think, provisions of this law is that the legislature provided that this program would be administered cooperatively through the department and nonprofit charitable organizations. So there's a relationship there with the department and those organizations to ensure that any donated license is reissued to an organization that provides those hunting opportunities to those individuals, which I think is a really good provision. And then this past year, in 2015, during the legislative session, the legislature expanded the program to also include that the licenses could be reissued to individuals that have a permanent disability that use wheelchairs. And as you know, we promulgated some rules last year to incorporate that new provision of that statute. So those are the underlying laws for the program, and any law that's enacted requires the commission obviously to take action on identifying through regulations how you want to promulgate the rules for the department to administer this program. And so Chapter 44 is our regulation for the issuance of licenses, and in Section 15, you as a commission have spelled out what are the specific rules that you want the department to follow when Jennifer administers this program. And the most important thing is that, first of all, if a person wants to donate their license, they have to submit the physical license document to the department before any season opens that license could be used for. And the person also has to sign an affidavit stating that they have not used that license during any open hunting season. And obviously, the person also has to acknowledge on their affidavit that that license was originally issued to them, and it counts for that person as their limit on any license that they have received during a calendar year. So as an example, as you know, in Chapter 2, Commission regulations identify how many licenses you can have for elk, deer, antelope, and as an example, like doe fawn antelope, there's a limit of 4 licenses in a season. So if I donate my doe fawn antelope license, that counts as one of my 4 licenses. That provision does not go away for the person donating the license. Also, if the person that donates the license happened to have used preference points, like for example on a bighorn sheep or moose, to receive that license, they are not going to have their points reinstated so that they can buy a license and get a license in the following year. They have lost their points and they're not eligible to buy points in the future. They have to be under the rule of that 5-year waiting period, or a lifetime license if they donate a mountain goat license. So those are the rules that you as a commission have established in Chapter 44 for this program. And as I mentioned, this started in 2011, and I will say that it was quite difficult for Jennifer those first few years to kind of coordinate that effort between the donated license and getting it into the hands of the organization that wanted to use the license with that particular individual. Because it had to be administered on a first-come, first-served basis. And so we had to make sure we got the donation in and then make it available to any organization. And it was quite challenging because a lot of those organizations have people ready to use the license, and they know that's coming in, but they had to wait for that opportunity. So Jennifer took a really good outlook and looked at the program. And when we made the change last year for having it also to be donated to a wheelchair individual, she took the opportunity to streamline this process and modify the application form to make that process very easy for a license to get into the hands of the nonprofit organization that had a person ready to take that hunting opportunity. And what she did is on the application form, she provided for an opportunity for the donator to say, I want to donate to either a disabled veteran or an individual in a wheelchair, or anyone, I don't care. And most importantly, I want it to go to this specific organization, or I don't care. So that was something that really improved the process. And so if it was not designated to an organization, then it's available first come, first serve, as it was in the past. And in your packet on this, the projection, I'm showing you what the actual application looks like, and I know it's very difficult to read, so don't bother putting your glasses on, Commissioner Rael. I have provided a packet of all of the application forms that you can take with you to see at your leisure on what the forms look like. So once we identify that there is a license available and has not been designated for a particular organization, then Jennifer has the ability to go right out to the website as soon as she gets that license in her hands, and she can post it on the website that we have something available for a person to try to obtain through that nonprofit organization. So it's a very user-friendly, and it's very public, and it's available to all individuals across the country. And just to give you a little bit of history about how the program has worked for the past few years, it began in 2011, and you can see there was a small number in 2011 of 51 donations, and it has grown substantially over the last few years up to 264 licenses donated. That first year, the reason it was so low and there was only 3 reissued is because the law became effective in July, and as you know, the commission had to promulgate the rule on how to implement the program, and so that commission regulation came at the July meeting, and by the time it was promulgated and the governor signed the regulation, the hunting season was pretty much over for that first year. So that's why the numbers are so low in that first year. And then if, just for some interest for you, this is a chart showing you for those licenses donated, what specific species have been made available to those individuals. And you can see that we have in the past received moose licenses and bighorn sheep licenses. So it's all species across all that are available, and lots of opportunity. And the organizations that have been participating in this program from its inception are listed on the screen for you. And I will tell you that primarily the majority of the licenses are working with Hunting with Heroes with Dan, who's here to talk with you today. So he is definitely someone who is extremely supportive of this program and very involved in this for his individuals. So just briefly, just talk about, well, how does a nonprofit get this license then? So as I mentioned, if the donor designates the organization, that application comes into our department, and Jennifer simply picks up the phone and calls that contact for that organization to inform them they have a license available. Then they'll work to get an individual qualified to receive that license, and it's just a process of getting all that paperwork processed and the license issued. If it's not designated to an organization, then it goes on the website, first come, first serve, and as soon as an application comes in, then it's made available. And on the website, what Jennifer will do is, if the license was donated for a designation of a veteran, it'll indicate that on the website. Or if it was for a wheelchair, it would indicate that, or nothing if there was no designation. And again, there's the application form for the organization. They're required to sign an affidavit that they qualify as a nonprofit charitable organization in order to receive the license. And then the person, the individual themselves, if they are a disabled veteran, they're required to complete an application form, so we know who they are and all their personal data, so the license can be issued. And they're required to provide supporting documentation for their eligibility for that license. And so for a disabled veteran, that documentation is a letter from the United States Department of Veteran Affairs where they indicate the person is receiving 50% or more service-connected disability compensation, and then they qualify for that license based on that qualification. It's a letter attached to the application. If it's a person with a permanent disability who uses a wheelchair, it's an application form, and on the application form is a section where they have to have a signature from a medical doctor, nurse practitioner, or PA, basically indicating that that person is at all times confined to a wheelchair for mobility purposes. So that is the process, the application form. And I would ask, Madam President, would you like me to stop so that Mr. Corral can come up and speak to the commission before we take any questions you may have?
Does anybody have an immediate question for Jean, or would that be all right with the commission? I think that would be fine, Jean. That's a
Okay.
great suggestion.
Thank you.
Madam President, Commissioners, Director Talbot, and Wyoming Game and Fish, thanks for inviting Hunting with Heroes to participate in this program this morning. I was looking at those numbers this morning, and there was the number 197 of the tags that were issued. You know, I'm proud to say that we were involved with 137 of those tags. Before I talk about the program for a minute, we have given you each a brochure that has some paperwork in there. If you have time to take a look at it, there's a couple things I'd like for you to look at. There was some, I don't know about rumors going around that Hunting with Heroes was a national organization and not a Wyoming organization. I want to let you know that we are a Wyoming nonprofit organized with the state of Wyoming, and we've done no hunts outside Wyoming, and so all of the veterans that come here, we participate in the state only with those hunting. I want to say that thank you for a couple of commissioners who donated tags this year. Commissioner Anselmi and Commissioner Clouda, he's not here. But we appreciate donated tags from any and all sources. Of the donated tags that we had come specifically to us this year, we had 149 tags donated to Hunting with Heroes. Now, we only hunted 137, and there's different reasons for that. But I didn't know that one of our big landowner supporters was going to be here this morning, and Rob and Leslie Hendry, if they're still here, they've been involved with our program since the beginning, and they donate quite a few tags for the program. We learned early on that getting donated tags for certain areas was difficult because of the lottery and the draws. And we also learned that if we could include landowners in the program, that would benefit our ability to get tags. Probably 90% of the tags that are donated to our organization come from landowners around the state. And that's a double benefit for us because those landowners almost always say, can you bring the veteran out to my place to hunt? So we get some access, and we get some tags, and a lot of times the landowner will also participate in the hunt with the veteran. I think in our brochure you can see a lot about our program, so I won't get into that too much. But I do want to say that this program in the disabled veteran community around the United States is a shining star on the hill. You guys should be proud of yourselves for this program and how it impacts the disabled veteran to have the opportunity to come and participate in what we call a Wyoming hunting experience. There's a letter in there in the brochure from one of our veterans, Vietnam veteran, and if you get an opportunity to look at that, he states fairly clearly how it has impacted his life just to come on a hunt last year. And he participated in a hunt out of North Portal, which is just north of Riverton. It was a great program that the community of Riverton put on. We have found that all over the state. I think after this season, this hunting season, we will either have hunted in every county or had veterans from every county or volunteers from every county. We survive with volunteers. We have no salaries in our organization, but it's a great thing that the Game and Fish has done with this statute for the veteran community. Now, Colton couldn't be here today. I was hoping he could. He and I founded this organization 3 years ago. We're going into our fourth. But he's a college student, and he had to go to classes this morning, and he wanted to come down. Some of you have had the opportunity to meet Colton, and you know what a great young man he is and how he has gotten through his injuries of losing a leg and having tremendous back injuries and some traumatic brain injuries and things like that. So anyway, if you guys have any questions for myself or Jennifer Charlie, who is the driving force for you guys, I'll tell you, in this program, and without Jennifer Charlie, my life would be very difficult. With her, it's great. Thank you. So any questions, please?
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Crank.
So Dan, I commend you for your commitment in this program. It's an incredible deal. So it's baseball season, and I'm going to throw you a slow curveball across the center of the plate, and I want you to hit it over the center field fence, okay? Clear up this Texas connection. I've defended Hunting with Heroes that this is some Texas organization hunting with Wyoming. So give us the straight skinny, and for once and for all, clear that up for your benefit and mine.
Thank you, sir. I do live in Texas. I'm retired, and my wife is retired, and we have family in Texas. And so we spend the winters in Texas for sure. I was up here a couple times earlier in the year, and that reaffirmed my belief in some people need to go south for the winter. And that's the Texas connection. I was born and raised in Wyoming, went to Casper College, worked for Little American Sinclair Oil Corporation for quite some time. But the Texas connection is that I winter there. Now, that doesn't mean I don't do work on Hunting with Heroes during that time period, because we do. Someone asked me about retirement and what am I doing, and I say, well, now I have a full-time job that I don't get paid for, but it's the best job I've ever had.
I think you just hit the curveball over the center field fence.
Well, thank you very much for that, but it's your program, the donated license program is Game and Fish. It's not mine. It's not those disabled veterans that we get to bring in and participate in that Wyoming Wildlife Magazine. Some of you have probably already seen the article. Colton Sasser had the opportunity to hunt antelope. The governor and the First Lady donated tags for their ranch at Woods Landing. And Colton had the opportunity to go down there and hunt, and we had a lady go down there and hunt also. We also had a blind hunter who came in from Florida and hunted with us this year, hunted antelope here. We had a couple of the wardens that from the Casper office who guided him. He got a buck antelope on Saturday, and he got a doe on Sunday. And he was very, very happy, and we were also. He's a great young man. He's going to college in Florida. He's totally blind, burned over 60% of his body, lost a leg, lost part of a hand, and but just a great. If you met this young man, he's a great American. So, and maybe you will. Maybe we'll have him back for another hunt, and we can get him just to visit with some of you guys. But if you have any questions about how the program works, and it's a little paper heavy at times, but we get through that with the help of the folks in Cheyenne. The Game and Fish has been kind enough to let us work with game wardens at different places, and we could go over a long list of the game wardens and the staff that helps us in our program. And I know Director Talbot is helping with that, along with some of the other folks. Any other questions? We'd certainly, Jennifer would love to talk to you guys about those, right, Jennifer? She's the expert, I'm not. She's the expert.
Well, I would just like to tell you, Dan, the thanks to you and Colton and Jennifer and Jean and everybody who does this. It's a great program. And I actually do have one question, which is going to seem kind of, for Jennifer probably, but maybe you. It's timely, but seems insignificant in the bigger scheme of things. But just out of curiosity, when someone donates their license to nonprofits for this program, or through the Game and Fish regulation, do they receive a value certificate from either the nonprofit or from the Game and Fish in regard to that license that they can use as a proof of donation on their taxes?
Let me make one comment, and then I'll turn it over. What we try to do with our hunters that get that tag, Jennifer's kind enough to let us know the name and address of those folks who donated the tag. We request the hunter to send a note to whoever donated that tag. Sometimes we get that done, and sometimes it doesn't happen. But and sometimes they get more than a note. They'll get a letter or something that is similar to what the letter's in that thing. Go ahead, Jennifer. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
President Little, just to answer that question, we send out thank you letters every year to everyone who donates, but we do not put a dollar amount on that. The department is trying not to give any kind of tax advice. So when people call in, we just let them know the dollar amount of their license and refer them to their accountant for that. So we don't do any kind of tax advice on that.
But everyone definitely has a thank you from the department, so
They do.
proof that the donation was made.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other
President
questions?
Little, while we've got Jennifer up there, I don't want to embarrass you, but I had an opportunity to meet last week with some of the folks with Wyoming Outdoor Adventures. And, every time I meet with those folks, they go on and on about how much help Jennifer Charlie is. They are thoroughly convinced you have angel wings and walk on water. And I just want to say thank you for helping those folks and the way you represent the department, Jennifer.
Thank you, Commissioner Colbert. Thank you.
Here, here.
Madam President, I have one more comment to make, and I was reminded back there. At some of the functions we have as many as 20 disabled veterans come into a community and participate in a weekend hunt, and that's how we get such big numbers. But we have had, and we do have a dinner normally on a Saturday evening after we hunt Saturday, and we always try to invite commissioners and public officials, and we have had some of the commissioners attend. I know you have. And so if you happen to get an invite from one of us and you're close to that community where we're holding one of those, please try to stop by, because I know that it's important for the disabled veteran to get that input from you folks, and it's rewarding as can be to work with these folks. So thank you guys very much. Thank you.
Thanks
Madam
to all.
Ch- Oh, I'm sorry. No, Madam Chairman, I was remiss. I think the other person that we need to thank is landowners. So Commissioner Hendry and Mrs. Hendry, I mean, that's amazing that, I hadn't put that together till Dan said it, but many times there's areas they wouldn't have access to if they didn't have generous landowners that would donate their landowner licenses and allow access on as well. So thanks to the landowners that participate in the program as well.
Absolutely true, Commissioner Crank. Thank you very much, because that was remiss on my part, too. Thank you very,
Madam
very
President,
much.
commissioners. Thank you.
That it? All right, we are right on time for our lunch break from 11:30 until 1, and we will reconvene at 1 o'clock.
Do we need to do a call to the public?
No, we don't have one scheduled, and I was afraid to do it.
We can do it tonight.